Yo, welcome to Digital Interactions on the Hacking Your Health podcast with your host, Ben Canning. Yo, welcome back to another episode of Digital Interactions. Today we're joined with Brandon, and this one's going to be slightly different in the fact that Brandon I no longer work with, and I think that this will be an interesting conversation because we'll be able to talk about who you were before, the process that we went through, and because I don't know, but I will assume, if you've been able to sort of maintain and keep up the habits and behaviors that we have worked through in our time together. I find the best position to start is we started in around October 2022. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. So talk to me about you before we started. Like, what were your frustrations? What did day-to-day life look like? And essentially, ultimately, what made you book that call?
So around that time period, we just gotten back from a camping trip. There's a couple of events, and I want to get to both of them if that works. But the initial one was a picture of myself that I saw that just was like, wow, is that what I look like now? So you think of yourself from an external perspective and internal. You don't always put those together. At least I didn't, and that might be true for other people as well. But that was a initial realization from a physical standpoint, just visually. The other one was prior to that event, was actually going up the Manitou Incline for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I know we did that later, but we can get to that after this. But I went up that, and I thought I was going to die. My heart felt like it was going to just explode out of my chest. Did not feel great. Even had another humbling moment where a quite pregnant lady passed me on that, and I was just like, holy cow. So physically I was just like, I am not where I want to be at all. Visually, even just physically how I feel, it was not great. So a couple of those experiences really humbled a lot of how I felt, and was like, all right, we need to make some changes. I'd always been pretty active prior to getting to that place in life. So it was hard to, like, where do I begin to get back to what I once felt like and who I felt I was. Needed kind of a spark or something to kind of get a roadmap into how do I get from where I'm at to where I want to be. And that was difficult to do alone, or I felt it was. Now, that's going to be different for everybody, but that helped me kind of book that initial call with you. And it's like, all right, here's the initial goals of what I want to do, and how do we get to some end point? I think when you asked me originally, like, what's your goals? And it's always like, all right, the initial one's weight loss, because it just doesn't feel right. We want to work on that. And that's where we ended up kind of focusing, or at least that's what I felt like we talked about initially. Beyond that initial goal, I didn't have real long-term plans laid out. It was just, I want to start here and then see where this takes me. So that was definitely a lot of the initial events that helped me book that call, and just have a conversation with you about, all right, I need to do something different, because what I'm doing is not going to work for who I want to be in the future.
Okay, fair. Yeah, and I would agree. And I will say that Manitou Incline is no joke. So I feel you, Ben. We did do it. So then we started, as you said, in October. In your own words, what process did we go through? Like, what did the process look like for you when we initially started? What was the sort of, for you doing it as an end user? Like, how did you go through the process?
So I do remember your initial, hey, start recording everything that you're eating type of concept as a baseline, which, when I've been asked by other people, like, what have you been doing? What have you been working on? And all that stuff. It's usually like, we need baseline data to even make any changes on anything. So I liked your approach, and that's usually what I end up talking about with people in general, is how can you make any adjustments if you have no idea what you're even dealing with? So I liked your approach from that. It's fantastic. I think anybody that wants to get a real eye opener into what you're consuming day to day, because you're like, no, I'm fine. I'm only doing 1900 calories a day. I'm like, record it. Go ahead and see that for 2 weeks straight, and then get back to me on about like what you think you are taking in. Because I'll tell you right now, I know what I was taking in at that time, and it's nowhere near 2,000 calories. So, with that said, we started there. You got that initial data. You had my initial metrics, initial photos, and all of that stuff. And then you started putting together the program from there to what we started doing, from workout availability. All right, here's how many days you're going to do weightlifting. Here's the cardio I want you to start with. And now here is your calorie kind of initial kind of target. Along with that was interesting that I also thought I was drinking enough water day to day. That was absolutely not true either. So I think there's a lot of eye-opening initially to like, okay, Ben wants all this information, but I'm looking at it as I'm giving it to you as well. I'm just like, man, I'm not anywhere near where I thought I was doing stuff. And, I think that eye-opening is very helpful for anybody that wants to start making changes. So I like that approach. That's what I remember a lot of. And still to this day, when I'm looking at different options of foods or whatever, it's like, I still need to hit this amount of protein. I'm going to choose this option instead of that option. That type of stuff is stuck with me. So anyway, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, there is always a lot of, and I deal with this even still with clients now, that they're like, I don't like tracking. I don't like tracking my food. It's, it's a tedious task, insert whatever. And I'm like, while I know it's not something that I want to do forever, it is such a valuable process to go through, because you actually see, as you said, number one, what you are consuming, but number two, how food's actually made up. And you sort of like, you're maybe in this position now, you almost have this like sixth sense around food, that you can look at a plate of food and 2 plates of food and okay, right, this one's going to be more nutritious and probably better for me than this one. So it's like a process. If you go through it, gives you a bit of an understanding as to what you actually consume, how food's made up, and then essentially on the other side of that what you need.
Right. It's 100% true. And that's, well, after doing the year long with you, I still have that in my head when I'm looking at stuff. I may not track day to day exactly how I was back then. However, doing that allowed you to see a lot of stuff as you're tracking, like over time, like, all right, that food is definitely not something I want to spend calories on. And that's just the mentality of what kind of got created from that.
I think that the analogy of spending calories is exactly the one, because, if you think about spending, you think about money, and you think about budgeting. If you do the same with the calories, it's exactly the same. It's just that sort of thought process is definitely beneficial. So
yeah,
you mentioned there, obviously we went through the initial year working together, and I mentioned this to everybody at the start, so I'm sure I did at the start. Like, the goal with Love for Everybody is essentially to get rid of you at the end of it in the nicest way possible, but basically to give you the tools to get rid of you, but give you the tools that you can continue to do this forever. So talk to me about the process from, I can't remember exactly when it was, but then to now, like how things have been. Have you made any changes? Have you been able to stay consistent? Have you made progress? Like, where are you at with things now?
Yeah, actually, I still have a lot of your tracker stuff, and I kind of modified things a little bit, where I'm now using like a different app on my phone. I think Boyd's on it as well, the Heavy app. So I put all the workouts in there, and I'd like to modify some more stuff over time, but I'm still hitting typically 3 days on weightlifting, except for last week. I was actually in Montana for a vacation, so I took a week off, However, still putting in the cardio, still doing the weightlifting, and still keeping within certain constraints on calories, because I'm usually used to what I have been doing for a while. I kind of have an idea of where I want to be. With that said, I'm actually thinking of putting myself into a cut phase, which that'll be the first time that I really did that on my own here coming soon. So we'll see how that goes. But with that, I will probably track pretty religiously, because without that, it's really hard to stay on a cut phase, because I need the extra data. I can't kind of wing it on a few things like I've been able to with more of a surplus state. But yeah, I've been sticking with it. I think it's great. If I didn't, I would miss not doing this now. So that's kind of one of those things that's changed in the sense it allowed when I remember talking to you originally of like, hey, I need that extra kind of coaching and tracking and even just like as we were doing the weekly check-ins, like I needed that at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I need that quite anymore. However, it's still good to kind of be watching the group on Discord of, people joining or people talking about their workouts, and even seeing when I load my workouts in the tracking app and, I get a thumbs up from Boyd or whatever. It's just good to see that because it still kind of reinforces that mentality a little bit too. But yeah, it's been good. I kept going. I had no intentions of stopping or just, like, okay, I did a year, I'm done. Like, no, I did a year to gain a foundation of what I should do or how I'd like to live life, and now keep it going.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And same, like, I say this, and I say it quite a lot in general. And I say it specifically, obviously, whenever I have initial calls with people, as I probably said to you, like, my goal is to educate you so that you can continue to do this in whatever capacity that you deem that you need to, for however long you feel like you need to do it. I'm going to challenge you a little bit just because you mentioned going into a cut, and this will tie in nicely to, I guess, a time frame, because I'm quite about that. You mentioned you're going to go into a cut and you're going to sort of self-direct it.
Yes.
It's 13 weeks and 2 days today, as we record this, between when we first started and the 2-year mark. So have that set for yourself for the next 13 weeks. You're going to do a cut, and then we'll set up a call, you and I want to see how you managed it by yourself as a little bit of additional challenge for you to see how you navigated that by yourself. Because yes, a surplus presents its own challenges, but a cut and navigating that by yourself presents its own challenges too. So I'll set that challenge to you, and we'll be able to catch up in a few months' time on that.
I love it. And what you said with, like however long you want to continue something when it comes to working out and staying fit. I know others have mentioned the book by Dr. Tia, The Outlive, and just talking about that concept. It's been on my mind a lot with family in the last couple of years around seeing my grandma specifically, where, she had issues this past year, but the year before broke her hip and was able to recover from that. Typically, when you look at like statistics and data of that type of break at 90 plus years old, it's almost a death sentence at that point. Mm-hmm. However, she's stayed active her entire life, always moving. She still does little workouts here and there, and kept her muscles strong enough to be able to recover from that. So it's almost like just reinforcing all of this stuff like that we talk about a lot, that I'll see in the Discords, that I know that you and Dave have been talking about over time. It really reinforces how important this stuff is for whatever goal, just plug in whatever goal you have, and make sure that you're setting yourself up for success through that, because there will be challenges, especially as we all age. So it's just one of those that I figured I'd mention that because it's been on my mind for the last couple of years as I'm watching those things happen. But it's also good to see like she kept going and was able to kind of push through stuff like that. So, take it for what it is.
Yeah, well, I think that the point on that is like, regardless of what way you shape it, you're going to have to deal with something that is difficult at some point. Mm-hmm. And right now, for anybody who's listening who isn't looking after their health and potentially feels like they're out of shape or they're not happy with how they look, the difficult thing right now is starting, like tracking your food, getting to the gym or whatever. It's infinite. Well, I mean, I'm not at that stage yet, but I would imagine it's infinitely easier to go through that difficult thing now and have those habits and behaviors and routines for the next 40, 50, 60, however many years it is. So that down the line, if anything does happen, you're in a much better position to deal with it, rather than not actually going through the difficult period now when you're younger and it is technically easier, and dealing with the difficulties down the line. As you said, potentially a break like that or something that, could set you back and leave you sort of unable to do anything. So dealing with the difficult things up front so that you have that sort of longevity longer term, I think is very valid. And I think, probably over the past definitely 2 years, potentially 3 years, like the more people that I have conversations with, it isn't necessarily always just, maybe initially it's about the weight loss, but as we sort of go through the process, it is about like, okay, right, how can I how can I live longer? Like, how can I live longer, but how can I live better as well? And I think that, that sort of planning to the future is an important one for sure.
That's why I mentioned it before of like, here's my initial plans. I had no others. We've evolved through this, and things kind of change. You're like, all right, my perspective is changing on what is important. And now this is what I want to focus on. This is why I want to show up to when I maybe feel like shit. I don't want to work out that day. Go do it anyway. Show up for yourself now for later type of mentality. And I think that's incredibly important because even, since not working with you day to day, there's been days where you're just like, I don't want to go down there and do that shit. Like, to hell with it. And then it's like, okay, you go and do it. And you're like, no, I do feel better. I don't know why I felt like shit before, but I do feel better. But those are the harder ones to push through. And I've heard that from other people multiple times, and it is absolutely a real thing that you just, when I started with you, it was like excited. I'm always motivated to do the thing. Okay, that's great for that small time frame. How are you going to integrate this into your life, as a permanent type of deal? And now you're going to have those struggles, or I know I have, and I know it sounds like other people have, ran into that from time to time as well. So it's important to realize your perspective will change, and you're going to have to kind of fight through some of that stuff too, potentially. I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, on that, like, I find this, like, you're talking about goals evolve. Like, at the start, you don't really know what's possible. So like the first thing is like, I'm not happy with how I look and how I feel. So weight loss is going to make me feel better. But whenever you do that, you're like, oh, well, I can now do a lot more of these things. So you can get a bit more specific about your goals, whether it's a performance related goal or whether it's a faster time or actually make it up the Manitou Incline or whatever it is. Like you can then see what the possibilities of what you're actually capable of that you don't necessarily know before you start, which I guess leads me in, you mentioned how you felt before we started. How do you feel now, day to day? Like, what does that look like for you?
Oh, I feel great. I'm pretty sore today because I beat the hell out of myself yesterday. But anyway, it's I feel so much better. I know, like, if I think back, like, all right, I just did a ton of yard work, or I went and helped somebody move, and then the next day I couldn't even move or feel like doing anything. That's not the same anymore. It's like, nope. I've been doing deadlifts for this. I've been doing the squats that I hate for this. And now it's, I feel great. I can push through stuff more. And that's what I even challenged myself on when we did our event out here in the Springs. And when we went up the incline, I pushed myself on purpose. I was like, I want to see, after almost a year, it was not quite a year at that point, but still a pretty decent amount of time making changes, how I felt. And I flew up that. Didn't even feel like death. In fact, I think as we were coming down, I remember talking to Kev Cody. It was like, I think I could do it again. Like, let's just go, like, I just feel that good about stuff. So it was night and day difference on all that, but it wasn't, I wasn't trying to compete with anybody else but myself on that particular time, because I had that burning in my mind about how I felt going up at that first time, where it's just like, holy shit, like,
I think
gonna die on this mountain.
But that's a good direct comparison. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's you have the specifics of how you felt and then how you felt that day. Have you done it since? I guess about just over a year ago when we did it. Have you done it since then?
Not yet. It's on the list of things. I did some hiking out in Montana just recently when we went up to Glacier Mountain National Park, and the elevation isn't that high, believe it or not, out there. So I didn't feel like out of breath or anything.
Breezy for you who's acclimatized all of the time.
Well, when we sit at 6,100 feet around here, it's a little different when you're down at like 3,200. It's the same when I go back home to Vegas and then run around that city, and it's like nothing because it doesn't sit that high either. So, keep that in mind. But no, it's absolutely on our list of things to do. I think my wife has a coworker that wants to do it, so I think we're going to be planning it pretty soon to go back up there.
Well, a good time to do it within the next 13 weeks for your cut that you planned, that I'm now forcing onto you.
I said it out loud, and I like that you're like, all right, I heard it. We're going to do this. And I'm like,
it's going to be on the internet. So like, everything that we believe, everything on the internet is going to be on the internet. Talk to me then in the time frame that we worked together. Obviously, we were fortunate enough to get some time together, as you mentioned, in Colorado at the lifting camp out there. But talk to me about what the most unexpected thing that you gained in our time working together, or even after that.
Definitely new friends that I didn't know. I've been talking to several people still in the group and kept in touch, and it's been great to have that. Where I probably should be better about showing up to more of the calls and other things that you're hosting all the time. I'm pretty terrible at that, but still trying to be active, still talking to people. I think that's just been a really good, if you want to call it support group or whatever. That was kind of one of the things that when I moved from Vegas to Colorado in 2016, moved away from a lot of lifelong friends where we used to work out together and we used to kind of do that sort of thing. So then now having that in a different kind of avenue, and people that are constantly trying to make, life changes, things like that, it's great to have and see. And I do a lot better job, keeping up with my friends back home and saying like, yeah, how's your workouts going? Things like that. We're doing that again, but it kind of took, getting involved in all this to kind of shift my mentality to like, yes, I can do this stuff, even if I'm, at my gym here at the house, and still keep up with everybody and not like have to show up to a specific place to kind of have that impact. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. It's the like you don't have the accountability of a person being there waiting for you to do the workout. You can still get it done by yourself.
Right.
Do you still, when you go back home to Vegas, do you work out with the people you used to work out with before? Like you make sure you make the effort to do that?
Yes. I think that was some of the pictures I remember originally sent you as well, of like my buddy's gym in his garage. And that's usually where we'll do that. And just kind of, where like I have specific, stuff that you had built for me that I still love doing, just kind of tailor something that'll work pretty decently in his garage, or adjust where I can. There's lots of different ways to do lots of the exercises. So it's okay. There's weights there. I'm here. Let's do the thing.
Yeah, I think it's cool as well. Like, I still, I work out in a gym, yes, but I predominantly work out by myself, but it's always good, if I'm traveling and I catch up with someone, or Matt comes over, or being able to work out with a friend, like it's always good to see another human to do it with them, and just sort of see what it looks like for them, or take tips from them, or if they're doing a certain thing. Like it's one of my, I'll not say it's one of my favorite things. I do like working out by myself, but it's good to have that variety. Sometimes be able to work out with other people as well, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Better than just the only excuse of going out and getting fucked up. Like I'd say it's definitely a better option than that, which I have many of those people in my life that I try and avoid as much as possible. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm going to say it wasn't. Whenever you joined the Quickfire Questions, or almost the second interview round, was not a thing. But obviously you've seen it happen in the chat, that when someone joins, they get sort of bombarded with, harassed almost with questions from the rest of the group to sort of establish themselves within the community a little bit. But we'll go through them now, and you can see what your answers are. And these, I've literally just mentioned this, just recorded with Kevin there. These have been eye-opening for me, for the people who didn't go through it the first time round. So we'll see what your answers come back with. Avocados or no?
Yes. Just asked me yesterday.
Perfect. Good. What brand of air fryer do you have?
Ninja.
Nice. The correct answer also. What is your go-to excuse for skipping leg day?
I just don't want to. I don't know.
At least you're honest. That's fair. Right. Talk to me then about oats, cooked or uncooked.
I liked cooked. I know that's a very controversial thing on the.
That is a controversy. Tell me why.
Yeah. I think it's because I grew up that way. Okay. How about that? Beyond that, it's not like I wouldn't have them uncooked. It's just a preference because I'm used to it. Doesn't mean I can't change.
I think the funny, and I've thought about this time and time again. Obviously, like we joke about this within the chat and on the channels and whatever, and we have done for the past 2 to 3 years. There's absolutely zero context to it for anybody who's not within. Do you know what I mean? Like it's quite a relevant topic of conversation for us, but people are probably like, "What the fuck are they talking about this?"
I know
so much.
I'm like, who cares? No.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's talked about at least 2 or 3 times a week within the chat. I'm definitely on the calls, but anyway.
Yes.
What is the most absurd health and fitness advice you've ever received? And an additional question to that: did you follow it?
I don't know if I've ever actually received any. I definitely see a lot given to different people at times. And the only thing I can ever go back to is be careful who you take advice from if they actually haven't done the thing.
Agree.
Beyond that, I I see a lot of nonsense online for a lot of different topics. So, you're going to have to be careful and kind of rigorous on how you start doing research on stuff, like anything these days. But I don't know that I've actually gotten any that was absurd or something. I can't think of anything off the top of my head anyway.
Very good. But I agree with that. Like if the person isn't doing the thing or hasn't done the thing, it's the same with business advice. You see these, I laugh that my favorite one is on Instagram. I get DMs all the time about these people who have this like great Instagram growth strategy to help me out to gain, hundreds of thousands of followers. And I click on their profile and they've got 200 followers. And I'm like, why the fuck would I listen to you? Like, what the fuck?
Right.
So it's that same thing. Like if you haven't done the thing or don't have the thing, don't listen to the person. So that's fair. If you could only do one exercise forever, what would it be?
I do like flies.
Nice.
At one point, well, the reason I say that, I guess, is because at one point, post-surgery, when I had my labrum torn in like 2014, and I remember going through physical therapy, and the physical therapist was like, you should never do these ever again. And I do them, and I don't have any pain, and I love that I can do it. And we've built a lot of the muscles around here appropriately so that everything is stable and strong, that I can do that. So I look at it from that perspective. There's a lot of exercises I do like, but that one I just figured I'd mention just because of that whole.
There's a little like fuck you, I'm doing these. Yeah. You told me not to. Yeah, that's fair. I can relate to that. I'd be that person too. Out of spite, almost.
Yeah, I'm a little stubborn with that. So yeah.
It's fair enough. Tacos or sushi? If you could only pick one, which you pick?
Oh shit, man, that's a hard one.
Fucking hardest. Honestly, like I battle myself with this question all the time.
I would say that I have sushi more often than tacos, although I had tacos last night. So, I don't know. That's damn. I'm just going to go with sushi.
But, okay, right. Let's delve a little bit deeper on this. So it's only tacos or only sushi for the rest of your life. So it's not like you can have other food and sushi, but not tacos, or you can have other food and tacos, but not sushi. It's like you can only consume tacos for every meal that you ever had, or only sushi, which I think changes it.
That does change it. There's so many varieties of different tacos and sushi that you can have. It's still, I think you could round out your diet a bit, but maybe after a while I'd be tired of that much rice, even though I eat a ton of rice still. So maybe that does change it for having tacos more of the answer, but god damn it, that's a hard question.
It's a tough question. Well, I think what changes it for me is breakfast tacos. Like I can't imagine breakfast sushi. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe, and do you know what? Maybe I'm missing out. That maybe there is breakfast sushi, but to me,
breakfast sushi, that's a new, I don't know that I've seen that, but I'm sure that's an idea that somebody needs to capitalize on.
Yeah,
man.
That is true. Maybe like more research required before we can answer this question.
Right. I think the group needs to get involved in this. Breakfast sushi.
Yeah, we can put it in the chat after with a game with absolutely easy. In fact, you should put it in the chat with zero context.
Yeah.
Right. Favorite method of cooking potatoes?
I guess air fried, because that would be more common and easier. But my wife loves mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes are good too,
but they are good. So I think it depends on the meal a little bit, like what would be better with it. Like breakfast tacos and having a air fried potato in that.
It's not going to work the same with mashed potatoes.
No. See, there you go. Context matters.
Yeah, for sure. Right. What one thing do you know now after our time working together and the time since then that you wish you knew before? Like what one thing you're like, I can't believe I didn't fucking know
that. There's always that when you're starting something new, like how do I know this is going to do the thing that I want? Like you're a little bit skeptical of it. I would say definitely just have the stick with the program, get paid after type of mentality through this type of transformational process. I not that I ever like struggled that hard with it, but there's always that like, okay, I know Ben's done a lot. You see the stuff with Dave, you've seen other people, definitely looked at a lot of the other people that came forward with their stories and stuff like that. But you still like, as a human, you have like irrational thoughts of like, do I really trust this? And you really need to. I think that's maybe my answer for that, even though I wouldn't say that I struggled hard with it. Just always one of those, like the back of your mind, like a little skeptical from time to time
I
about
think
stuff.
There's an element of that in the trust that you have in yourself, and maybe not for you specifically, but I see it with people before. If they've tried, 5-10 different ways to get in shape, lose weight, get healthy, get fit, and failed at them, it's almost like okay, right, I can see these results of X amount of people, but what if it doesn't work for me? Do you know what I mean? It's almost that mentality, because I failed at so many things before. And I think that
maybe that's a good way to think about it. I like that.
Yeah. And I think that the thing for that specifically is, what you mentioned there about the time. I think that 99% of the time that the things that people fail at is they just actually don't spend the time doing it, like enough time to sort of see the fruits of their labor at the other side of it.
Yeah. It's definitely stay consistent. If you feel like crap, do the thing anyway.
Do it anyway. I agree.
And then do 5 more after that.
Agree. Right. If you're describing We Hack Health to someone, what do you say?
Not a cult. I can't not put that in there.
That's enough. I don't need to say any more than that. And again, that's something that we all often say, but it's probably without context. Like, what the fuck are they talking about? Right. We'll wrap this up. Any final words from you in general to anybody who's listening?
I think at first I was a little hesitant to even schedule a call and kind of go through that and put yourself out there in some sense. Find whatever you need within yourself and just do it. Even have just the conversation with Ben and be like, I'm struggling here and there, and just talk through it. Even if that, even if you stop there for some reason, at least do that for yourself. I think you'll be quite surprised and happy with how things start evolving if you take those initial steps. But, I would say that would be kind of something to reflect on and think through for anybody out there that's on the fence of something. Do it. I promise that you probably will be surprised what you're capable of once you start actually putting the work in.
Agree. And I think that you just to sort of touch on that one more time, I know that the booking the call can be a daunting part. And for me, there's no, I go into it with no expectations. I probably actively expect not to sign up every person that I have that initial call with, but my goal is always to at least allow that person to leave with some sort of clarity or some sort of plan. If we come to the end of the call and we decide it's not a good fit, I'll always leave them with okay, right, go and do this, whether it's just track your food or whatever. So there will always be some value. And I hear this often, people will send me a message being like, I don't want to waste your time. I'm like, it is so much not a waste of my time to have a conversation with someone in the eyes that I'm able to give them some sort of value or some sort of help. So yeah, I'll +1 on that. Just book a call and I'm happy to have a conversation. Yeah. There's no obligation to sign up or move forward. If it's just a conversation, we have a bit of argument about tacos or sushi and a bit of a laugh, that's absolutely fine, and we can both go about our days. So yes, I would agree with that. Anyway, thanks for taking the time today to book the call, to have the conversation, to tell your story. I think that my goal with these is to give a lot of different views of people, and I think that this will be unique, as you've almost had, I think, potentially a year of navigating this by yourself. So now that it's on the internet, you're going to move into a cut for 13 weeks and we will catch up then and we can talk a little bit about it more. So you have to execute on that. But it's great to see that you've been able to maintain the habits. It's great to see that it's become, such a part of your life. And I'm looking forward to seeing how your next experience of the Manitou Incline goes.
I agree. Thank you so much for having me and letting me kind of put stuff out there, especially the cut. So yes, it's absolutely going to be a thing.
It's just going to be in about 8 weeks' time. You were like, why the fuck did I open my mouth about this fucking cut?
I might even say that sooner.
Cool. All right, dude. Thanks for taking the time. I'll catch you in a bit.
Yep.
Bye.